All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Toga TV. Special episode today. We are talking Beyond the Fist. This is the Street Fighter League livecast talk show presented by Toga TV. I'm your host, Tagashi Azrael. Let's meet our panel of analysts for tonight's livecast episode 1 draft day. First, formally of the Ottawa FGC's Downtown Rumble, now Vancouver Street Battles, Street Fighter V commentator, technical analyst, and resident Fong specialist, Mortsy. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, Online Warrior, Street Fighter V YouTuber known for his Guile play online, and more importantly, being able to play Guile at a high level with multiple sclerosis, which you can find out more about at nationalmssociety.org. SplicedHelix, how are you, my friend?
High level, come on.
Oh, high enough level. High enough level. When you're in Super Diamond, that's like the top, 0.25% online? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right, and finally, Vancouver Street Battles, a resident Claw player, commentator, technical analyst, YouTuber, and streamer. Say hi to Geki. I really wish he wouldn't do that 3-finger lick thing, but he's going to do it anyways. Geki, how are you, my friend?
Wonderful. Glad to be here.
All right, so before we get started, of course, all video footage from today's live cast is used with permission from Capcom. Follow the Street Fighter League and the Capcom Pro Tour on Twitch at twitch.tv/Capcom Fighters, on YouTube at youtube.com/Capcom Fighters, and on Facebook Live, facebook.com/Capcom Fighters. Now that you've met the entirety of the panel, let's put our quarters in the arcade, and let's see who's going to land the first hit for 3,000 points. Here we go. First, take a look at this video, if I can get it to load up properly. That's not the video I want. Yikes. Hang on. Technical issue. Let's get the right video. And we're off to a fantastic start.
The trailer.
Capcom presents Street Fighter League Pro US 2019. 6 teams will enter a 3v3 double round robin to determine the best teams in America over the course of 2 seasons of competition. 18 competitors will be selected based on NACP performance, online competition, and community voting. Each team of 3 will be led by a team captain based on their NACPT leaderboard performance. 6 of the best online warriors will be invited to join the team captains in the inaugural Street Fighter League. The remaining 6 competitors will be decided by you, the Street Fighter community. You get to opt in and vote for your favorite players. 6 team captains will select from a pool of 12 fighters to determine their team. Before competition, each team will ban 1 character from team play, removing 2 from the roster, adding new layers of strategic depth to character selection. In addition to the character ban system, players will be characterless until the end of the team match.
Come on, Twitch, get your platform together. Come on.
Since teams cannot repeat character selections, teams will need to work together to overcome their rivals. Catch all the excitement and more at Capcom Fighters, April 2019. See you in the fight.
Whoops. That's not what I wanted. Where's Discord? Okay. Yes. Whoops. Thank you. Okay, so now that we've seen the format, it's been talked about for the last few months now. Much has been discussed over how this would be executed. How did you feel about the format overall? Is there anything in particular you want to highlight as a huge positive? Or is there something that you would like to change? SplicedHelix, please take us away.
I don't think there's any huge negatives to it. The 3 versus 3 format in the Japan version of the Street Fighter League, it worked well. I think it'll carry over well to an American audience. I think it should have been North America, but American audience, that's fine too. You know, freedom and all that. The format, the way they use it, is 3v3 instead of 1v1, so it lets you have a diverse number of characters. It lets you see different people as opposed to like the same 8 people in the top of the game every single time. Like, the CPT is there's diverse. Anybody can be up in the top 8 at any time, but most of the time you're going to see Punk, you're going to see Justin Wong. You're going to see these guys that you see all the time. And this way you get guys you might not see, guys who are fan favorites, guys who are online warriors that are getting in there and showing you what they have regardless of whether or not they make it to the big stage at the tournaments themselves. The bands themselves, they add a nice layer of strategy. So you have to think about not just who does that guy play, but who does the whole team play? Who can we take out at any given point to make it easier for us to win, or to make it harder for that one person to play? You know, you take out somebody who has a secondary they might not be as good with, as opposed to their main. You know, you take out their main and they still have a okay secondary, or you take out their main and you get people like Punk who play the whole cast at almost the same level as his Karen. So other than that, the number of teams, I think, might be the only downfall, is that there's only 6 teams. So if you had 8, you'd get, I guess, a longer season or more days during the week. Like you could do it 2 or 3 days during the week instead of just 1 every week. Other than that, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun to watch, and I think it's going to be fun to talk about every week.
All right, Geki, your take on all this?
I'm liking the format a lot based on first impressions. It's hard to gauge because there's a lot of missing information. Like, we don't know how long each of the sets will be played. We do know it's not going to be an OCV kind of situation, so there'll be a points-based system, it seems like. So I'm more of a fan of that in team tournaments, so no one can carry a whole team. The roster of players is nice, but I wish they added like a wild card of some sort, like maybe like a winner from certain locals from across the US or something, and throw them in there just to mix up, because we have seen all of these players to some capacity traveling, except for maybe Up to Snuff and Dual Kevin, who don't travel too much, even though Up to Snuff is from Wednesday Night Fights, so we do see him a lot in that if you watch that tournament series. But yeah, I can't wait to see what's going to happen, and I second that Canada should have been included.
All right, Mortsy.
I also really enjoy the format. I think the banning system is going to be really cool, not just for the players, but a really good thing for the viewers as well. Because it makes, one, we're going to get to see some people play characters that they might not get to see. There's a very large strategic element that it adds in for the individual matchups. And with the format, what's really going to be interesting for me is that because the teams play each other twice, that means that I'm really interested in seeing whether, or how the characters and how the bands change what coming around to the second matchup. I think that's going to be really interesting to see the strategies change throughout the season. Other than that, I also think that the no overlapping characters is super. Mm-hmm. That forces characters. That was actually really big during the picking. The drafting, I think, was the most important part. We only really saw the only real overlap was from the last pick, and there's only so much you can do about that when you literally get slotted. Like, you don't even get to pick your last character or your last teammate. But other than that, man, I'm really enjoying it. I don't really have any negatives. In fact, I think I enjoy the format as it is more than a lot.
All right.
Just everyone gets to play.
All right, cool. Do you guys agree that, well, just on this particular draft format, they mentioned that one player from each team had to be from the crowd favorites and the pro qualifiers. Do you agree with that, or should it just have been anybody? Geki.
I think anyone should have had the chance, because the U.S. does get a lot of exposure, as always, in terms of Capcom fighting games usually, and especially esports, of course, as people have pointed out. Although I do like a lot of the players, I think there's a good diversity of personality versus level of play versus types of players as well. And from all across the U.S., it's really nice. So I'm not too worried yet.
SplicedHelix, are there any personalities that you were expecting to see in this tournament that are not among the field?
Oh, no. I mean, they have Justin Wong in there. They have Punk in there, and Rob TV was a great addition to it, because you're not going to have people like you did on the Challenger. Mm-hmm. The kind of format that was played more towards personalities and drama and kind of put the gameplay in the background, where this is more of high level gameplay, and the personalities, while interesting, are going to come second.
All right. Now, Mortsy, just to sort of close off this topic, you and I, of course, brought up on traditional sports, mostly hockey. Do you agree with the way they executed the draft? I didn't feel like any of the the team captains were on the clock. I didn't feel like they had a specific order to how they drafted. I think it was based on CPT points from last year, who got the first pick. Do you agree with how they executed that?
I don't think there's a whole lot other way. What I'm disappointed in, actually, for the draft is strategy doesn't do coaches picking. But we're gonna get into that a little bit this next topic. Yeah. But I don't mind the draft at all. I don't think. I mean, for the entire time they had the show matches, and I thought it was still fun. The show matches were fun because you got to watch Street Fighter. It wasn't just the draft, no gameplay or anything. I mean, that's why people want to see these play. We got to see Chakotay Sim, which was just awful. But yeah, I actually liked the format of the draft, not the way that it was executed by the coach or by the captain.
Okay. So now that you guys have got your first attacks, your first licks in, we got some meter on your gauges there. Let's talk about whether or not you would save it or spend it. First topic coming up. 1 sec.
Getting involved now, and this is the first match of the day, and I can tell you right now, I'm looking around at the players, and you can see those smiles coming up across their faces because they know what's happening. They can feel.
They understand. They just want to play some Street Fighter, Steve. They've been trying to play all day, and they're all about it. Here we are again. JB locking down Ibuki in the corner from Shine. Boom. Back-to-back throws. Rashid's being able to do that. It's a very, very strong, potent tool to keep their characters locked in the corner. Another throw. That's 3 already in the corner. Side switch, tries to get the stun. Ooh. Nobody blocks the Eagle Spike on the same side. He thought it was going to be a cross-up, boy. Was he wrong? First and only game going to JB. JB. He knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing.
All right. So we've already established the fact that JB won that first to one. That was it.
That's
all she wrote.
Get up. I'm sorry.
What are you sitting down?
Go home. You know why you're. Look, you signed up for a one-game exhibition to show you had the chops to be on Knuckle Dude's team. No deal.
But we'll see. I mean, JB did win, but it's ultimately up to the captain's decisions. And standing by with them is Rip. Let's take a look.
Oh my goodness. That was an incredible way to start things off today. So Knuckle Dude, you've got to make a choice though. You got to pick one of these guys. You got to pick one of these guys. It's got to be JB or Shine. Which one's it going to be?
You know, Shine kind of got destroyed, but I see a lot of potential in him, so I think I'm still going to pick Shine.
So he's going to go with Shine. All right. So Shine, give me the first member of your team. You mentioned you saw a lot of potential. Was this basically, did you kind of know that you wanted Shine before you brought these players up here?
I mean, I don't really know Shine that well, so, but from his Ibuki, it was pretty good, so I'm going to give him a shot.
All right, there you heard from Knuckle Dude. And his take on the first pick. Every year in major professional sports, they always talk about in the entry drafts the #1 overall pick and how it affects the franchise for the rest of his or of their respective careers. Excuse me. So, was Shine, spend it or save it? You got meter. What are you gonna do? Was Shine the clear-cut #1 overall pick, or should have Knuckle Dude have gone with JB, or maybe in another direction? Start with Mortsy.
Okay, so I think, yes, Shine was the best first pick. And that isn't necessarily because he was the best pool of players available. If that was the case, I probably would have gone with Brian F., most likely. But the way that the draft was formatted, so each team has to pick one online warrior and one crowd favorite. So because of that, that means your first pick limits you to what the second 6 characters that you have to pick. Or second, so your second guy has to be from one of the 2 pools of players, and you're designated which one. And the online warrior pool is so much better than the pool of players offered from the crowd favorite pool. Especially because Du is last pick. That means that who he's just going to end up with, whoever is last. So it's better to pick the best crowd favorite and take your chances with whatever online warrior you get, because chances are they're still going to be a really good player because they won an entire, like, the online qualifier. So that is my logic behind it. Shine also has a really good secondary. So in the Karen, which I'm pretty sure he plays. Yes? No?
Not sure.
Or there's someone else that plays on his account.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I've seen the $3 Karen, which I believe exists. If not, he plays.
He has played Karen, yes.
Well. Yeah. So he has a strong secondary. He's also a good ban target. If people want to pick the Ibuki, then it was great. The only negative I think about picking Shine first was the fact that he ended up with Rob, because the overlap of characters forces like a huge mishmash within their team due to overlapping secondaries. Like, Rob was like the absolute worst of that he could have gotten in terms of character pool.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I actually never thought about it that way in terms of strategic drafting, because the way NuckleDu presented himself, obviously on draft day, was very nonchalant with that first pick. SplicedHelix, what do you think?
For the most part, I agree. It's the way that they have it set up for two players play in an exhibition match, and then you pick between those two players. I think that's a little limiting. I think that they shouldn't have had to pick either one of those players. If you want to have an exhibition match, have an exhibition match. But you should be able to pick from the whole pool. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to pick, let's say Broly, if you want to pick Broly first, even though he doesn't play in the first match, sure. Because you're in, if you look at it in like, let's say an NFL draft type format, it's not, you get to pick from these three schools, and you only get to pick from those three schools, and you can pick whatever position you want, but just from there. They get to pick anybody in the draft. Anybody. And I think that should have been the same way, regardless of whoever was fighting in that first exhibition match. I think picking Shine, I think it gives diversity outside of the Karen overlap. He's got like 4 characters, but other than that, he doesn't play Ibuki, so that adds another character to that team's roster. And I think a lot of the results are going to rely on strategy, not strength of character or strength of player. So if you've got a bigger roster to choose from and not have to worry about bans, that's good. And then you've got people who don't often get seen, so you don't know how to fight against them.
I actually really, really like the comparison with the NFL draft and being able to only pick from specific schools, which is why I brought up the formatting thing earlier. Mortsy will chime in on that really, really quickly. Mortsy, go ahead.
I just want to point out that the captains themselves picked which characters were going to be in the show match, because it was supposed to be framed as, I'm trying to decide between these two players. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't necessarily that he was forced to pick one of those two, but he chose those two and then made a final decision after the show match.
All right, so touching up on that a little bit, then Geki, do you agree with that style for picking these for deciding who you were going to pick on your team?
I do and I don't. I do like, because the reason you would pick two people to play each other is to see how one does against another situation, right? Maybe you're only trying to judge one person out of the two you pick, or you're trying to see both players and you're torn on which two to pick, right? So that's a different strategy altogether. I do say that I would spend it because Shine is a great player. He's well-traveled, of course. JB is not as traveled, and his offline success doesn't meet his online success as much as Shine. And not only that, there's another Rashid up for grabs in Dual Kevin, right? The only Ibuki on the map is Shine, and being one of the best in the US with Ibuki on your team is a huge asset to any matchup. And not only that, Ibuki is a really strong character this season, one of the top tiers, top 5. I doubt anyone can argue that. And she covers so many matchups that also NuckleDu's characters would struggle against versus just a Rashid and possibly a Pocket Birdie, which we have never seen before from JB. Even though JB is very studious, he's a lab monster, Shine just has a crazier lab game than I think JB does.
So would you guys say that Shine being the number 1 pick was more based on the actual draft format itself, or was it actually the clear-cut number 1 pick, Mortsy?
I don't think Goo was thinking that hard.
Fair enough.
I just think like Shine's just maybe the best player in the pool.
Okay.
And so he picked him because he's really good and because there's no overlap. It's not necessarily an easy ban target. Even though, like, Izabuki, is, I guess, a great ban target, but he has seconded.
All right, SplicedHelix, do you agree?
It was a good strategy.
Yeah. Geki?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with Mortsy. I don't think NuckleDu is thinking about it. I think he's just so cocky and thinks he's going to win the whole thing regardless who's on his team. Good for him. But picking Shine, I think, is the better choice overall, and I'm sure he knows that. And they know each other, but, Du doesn't know JB that well, so maybe it's also a coaching thing. Maybe he's just more comfortable having him on the team, right? They're both from East Coast, right? JB's West Coast now is kind of a traitor in the eyes of the community, so I'm just saying.
I don't know. Speaking, okay, so we'll end this topic right there because Geki brought up the term cocky. So speaking of cocky and confident, we of course now have a clip of Punk, and let's hear what he has to say real quick.
Or if I play Justin here, I'm banning Manat for sure. 100%. I'm not fighting that character ever. If I don't have the choice to fight her here, if I have the choice, I'm banning her. She's done. I think as a leader, maybe I would be really hard on my teammates, pushing them to do good. I think for me, it's the most effective way to get the greatest performance out of my teammates.
All right, so there we heard from Punk talking about specifically target banning Justin's Manat. Spend it or save it, gentlemen. Target banning the opposing team captain's best character. What is your ban strategy? Geki, start with you.
I'm spending it. Of course you ban Manat. Punk and most of the world hates that character. And not only that, the way Punk likes to play that matchup with Karen and his other characters as well kind of hurts his playstyle if he has to fight against Manat, where he doesn't whiff punish as much or as often, right? And even though on defense Manat is very weak, Justin knows very well how to beat Punk and the way he likes to play. So he can frustrate him in a way that I think Punk would rather not be if given the choice. So I think he's definitely, being the captain, he's going to definitely ban and advocate for a ban on Manat whenever he can, because it's just going to be in his favor and for the rest of the team too. Since it's Justin's best character, why would you let him play it?
All right, so with regards to not just banning Justin's best character, but just overall strategy, would you let your team captain make that sort of call on his own, or is there sort of a strategy element where you have to incorporate the rest of your team more on the target banning Mortsy?
That you got to talk to the team about it, man. That is the whole point of having those people there with you. Obviously, but you have two other minds, two other perspectives that you to actually come up with what you guys want to do, especially because sometimes you're just feeling yourself and you're like even if we fight this guy, I'm fine with it, or even if I have to fight them, I'm fine with it. I want to highlight quickly that we're working off of the assumption of how the format is. So if the format's different, then some of this is moot, at least for my points. I'm working off the assumption that all three players will play in a blind matchups, which means that there's, like we said earlier, there's no OCV. Mm-hmm. That one person can't carry a team, which means target banning a character who can sweep isn't necessarily the best idea. So I think that target banning based on a single matchup isn't necessarily the best idea. I think if it's working off a points system, it's better to guarantee yourself points by banning a specialist character. And forcing them onto a worse character, and that is almost a guarantee for your team to take at least 1 point. Unless, of course, you get lucky, basically. A lot of, if it's the point-based system, some of this might just be luck when it comes to matchups. You can ban a character, and then you still end up with a 6-4 matchup against your character. But on top of that, both teams are banning a character, so it will be interesting to see whether or not that luck comes into play. So I think you ban a specialist. whoever that be, whether it's like Chakotay Mika, Toy Bison, or like Frozen Lakes Chun, people who haven't shown that they have a strong secondary. I think that's my personal best strategy.
All right, so we talked about character bans a little bit. One of the more important things to note, of course, is if you are banning a specific character, it is banned for both sides. It is not just banned for one side only. That character is banned from the matchups completely. So SplicedHelix, how does that play into your strategy when you are choosing a ban?
Well, it plays to what everybody said already. It's you target a specialist. If you've got, Broly again comes up. Chun-Li, you take out Brian F's Balrog. He plays G, but he's known for his Balrog specifically. JB has said, I play Rashid, and that's it. So you take out somebody's what they're known for, what they have gotten all of their wins with, and you're going to see either an instant win for the other team, or you're going to see something that nobody's expecting, and somebody's been practicing a secondary for months on end and nobody knows about it, which is highly unlikely.
All right, so overall, just sort of based on how the banning strategy work, which team do you guys feel is the weakest going into just ban strategies in general? Start with Geki.
Overall, there's obviously like different strengths with all the teams and all the players, of course, but overall, I think the weakest team is Team Storm with Idom, because we got basically two character specialists in Samurai Zakuma and Idom's Laura. I don't believe that Samurai has a secondary that's anywhere close to the level his Akuma is, so it's definitely a nerf if Akuma gets banned or Laura gets banned, because we have to see this new character that Idom is teasing at, which I don't know if he actually has, or if it's even as good as the Laura, right? And Classico, he's being a strong player, but I don't think he's at the level that Samurai and Idom at either. And he plays a bunch of different characters that he's dropped, went back to, and kind of upkeeps all of them ever so slightly. But definitely Urine being his main is a strength. I think it depends on the format too, because if it's a 1-to-1, that team is really good in a 1-to-1 scenario, but the level of players, or the level of player skill, I think on that team compared to the rest is far between. So it's going to be tough for Team Storm, I think.
All right, so it's very interesting. Geki brought up the 1-to-1 in reference to the 1v1, the actual matchups, whether they are 1-to-1 or best out of 3. Does that change anything with regards to how you ban Mortsy?
Yeah, 100%. It not necessarily bans, it definitely changes who's the strongest team, because it doesn't take a whole lot to win rounds of Street Fighter V. And that's not a knock on the game, but sometimes, it's just volatile. Some characters specifically are very volatile. Shoutouts to G and Aegis Reflector. So, I'm imagining it's not going to be best of 1, and I'm working off of the assumption that it's going to be best of 3, best of 3 for each matchup. So, first to 2, 1, 2, 3. For each of the players. And my weakest team is actually working off of the assumption that Idom has some secondary, and he's just doing his absolute darnest to bait people into banning Laura as much as possible. So I think that Team Psycho is actually the weakest. There's 3 character specialists. The only one that I have any idea of secondary is Chakotay, and that's just characters that he plays online. He has been training the G to deal with specific matchups. I believe Keith being a really big one, and he's been talking about picking up Birdie to deal with Karen and Rashid, but that's he's literally been doing that discussion after they've done some recording. So depending on when this takes place, whether or not it's already taking place. But I just think that all 3 of them are easily bannable based on your team, and whether or not they have secondaries is it's up in the air. So you might be able to just score 3 points by banning one of their 3 characters. No overlap though, so it's not like all the teams are strong and they're good, but I just think that they're susceptible to bans. If anything, their one strength is that they have like Toy's the only Bison. Chakotay's not the only Mika, but he's probably the strongest. Yeah, strongest Mika. And Justicate is the only jury player outside of like Shine playing him with like casual matches or playing jury in casual matches. So they're still, you have to have specific knowledge if you're going to beat them, but I still think they're the weak team if IDOM has a special signature.
All right, last word, SplicedHelix.
Yeah, I have Storm and Psycho at the bottom of the results prediction that I did. It's just a question of diverse cast. You know, if you've got somebody who's so good on one character that they stay on it and just don't practice anybody else and just play that one character over and over and over, you figure out how to beat them. You know the characters that you can pick to counter that, and you watch how they play. There's plenty of footage on all of these people. Other than that, I mean, Justin Wong and NuckleDu and Punk play everybody. So they've got the ability to make up for having certain characters be gone. I don't think Storm or Psycho have that kind of tool in their belt.
All right, so we'll end the discussion on that topic there. SplicedHelix brought up a prediction time to put you guys into the hot seat. But before we do that, let's play this quick clip where Tasty Steve and Vicious are reviewing the finalization of all of the teams in play. Check this out, guys.
But, I mean, you kind of see the synergy, how Justin Wong's kind of planning for the future to get ready for the likes of NuckleDu, but he also has the other teams to worry about, right? Let's talk about the teams. We have Team Gale with Rob TV and Shine. That's going to be the online warrior and the crowd favorite you see over on your screen. You have Team Spirit with Captain Justin Wong having Brian F and Psycho. And then you have Team Inferno with the Captain Punk having JB and Broly Legs.
And of course, Team Storm, leader IDOM, Samurai in the middle, Classico on the end, Team Psycho, leader Toy, El Chakotay, as well as Just a Kid, and Team Frost rounding us out, Nephew, Dual Kevin, and as well as Up to Snuff. Our teams have been decided, all the players have been separated. We have our squads.
All right, guys, there you heard it. Those are all 6 teams for Season 1 of Street Fighter League. Let's put our panelists in the hot seat. This is the final round for tonight's livecast episode of Beyond the Fist. We're going to start with Geki. Who you got and why?
Well, as a personal fan, and because I recently spoke to him, gave me the life advice of fighting games, I got to go Team Spirit, honestly. Like, Justin's too good. Like, I know he's not going to carry a team, but I know he will incorporate and, share his beliefs of Lame, the school of Lame. And Psycho is already an incredibly strong Nikali, very patient, very good at mixing aggression with patience. Brian F is a super aware and high-level Balrog, but also just a great fighting game player, so he can always adapt. I mean, even if you ban Manat, Justin has Falk and Karen and Birdie, and he just understands the game so well, and Brian F does as well, and so does Psycho. And when you look at all the players playing, since it's going to be a points-based matchups, that everyone has to be strong on your team, and I think each of the players on Spirit all think very similarly compared to the rest of the team, so I think there's going to be a big harmonious victory for them when they make it across to number 1.
All right, Mortsy, you're up.
I couldn't disagree more. In terms of band, so for Team Spirit, specifically, I actually wrote out how each team would win if they were to win, or like what the cases would be for each team in order for them to win. And I think that if people do opt to ban one of Justin's characters, then yes, Team Spirit has a really good chance of winning. But if people just give up on trying to ban away Justin characters because he has 4 or 5 characters play at the same skill level, and ban Brian S. Rog, then they're going to have a much, much more difficult time. And this is also me because I haven't Psycho play ever before this. So I don't necessarily have the insight into how he plays and how strong he is. Mind you, I believe he's one of the online. Is he one of the Warriors or is he one of the? Sorry, I actually have this down. No, he's a crowd favorite, which is another reason why. Like he didn't get an in necessarily because of skill. Yeah, you hit it.
He has won. When we had the Red Bull Proving Grounds events, he won every single online event. Well, not one, but he got into the qualification spot every time. And against people like DeAnswer, against DR Ray, against Kaba, and all those players that are competing for the spot on the Proving Grounds team. So he's definitely... And this was in Season 1. So
when Nikali was busted.
Yeah, but then following through the next year into Season 2, like he was still ridiculously strong. So fundamentally, I think super solid, and I think it's only gotten better from there.
Okay. That still doesn't change my opinion, but I do appreciate having a little bit more insight into this. But I think NuckleDu Team Gale is going to win. They have deepest. All three of them have like decent characters that they can play. Shine is the only Ibuki, which I personally think will be banned every time. I don't think, due to the way I think about it is that if you ban, you ban Guile, that covers, bans are actually way more effective against this team, which is really interesting because both of Rob TV's main characters, Garen and Guile, overlap with the secondaries or main characters of the other two teammates. Which makes it super messed up. So I think people are going to ban his Shine Ibuki, which forces him onto Karen, which forces Rob TV onto Guile, and forces NuckleDu onto one of not Guile. Because there's such huge overlap. But it's fine because they all have so many bloody characters that they can play so damn well. NuckleDu, when was the last time NuckleDu even played Guile? All I've seen recently is Cammy.
He played Guile at NCR. I think at NCR he played Guile. I think.
Yeah, okay. He did. Okay.
So, and it's all matchup based, but you don't know who you're going to play against. So, just having a massive depth of characters makes it so good. They're just so strong, and all three of them are just really good players. And if you leave that Ibuki up, man, you're going to get mixed. You have to have the experience against the character, and he's the only one. The only one. So yeah, I say Team Gale takes it. I say Psycho comes in last.
All right. We're just talking about overlaps, and we're talking about how the ban phase is going to be playing a huge factor in who was going to win. SplicedHelix, you touched on your picks earlier. So who do you have as your Season 1 winner, and why?
I have Team Inferno as number one.
As my number two.
I mean, Punk is Punk. You know, the dude has proven himself. I don't know how many times. I mean, from the inception of Street Fighter V, you know, and he's just adding more and more characters to his plate. You don't know how good he is with any of them. You don't know who he practices because you're betting on facing that Karen that he's famous for. You're strategizing on how to beat his best character when it's Punk. So everybody else is coming in. You know, when's the last time you saw Punk's Nash? But he plays Nash. Everybody knows he plays Nash. You know, Broly Legs. If they don't ban Chun-Li, he's going to be a problem. He is good on that character, and not a whole lot of people play Chun-Li, except let's go with the outlier of last weekend. Where did all these Chun-Lis come from?
Punk has a Chun, but he's the only one.
Yeah, and you know, there's not a lot of practice against him. There's not a lot of, you know, let me run into this person at my offline local. It's Broly Legs, and you ask anybody who's got the best Chun-Li, it's going to be either Broly Legs or somebody you're not counting on.
Specifically in this. in the
specifically in America you're referring to, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, Rashid is Rashid, you know, and is JB. He's proven that he's good with Rashid. So you've got targets for bans, but if you don't do it correctly, again, it comes into strategy over strength.
So do you guys feel like the most important aspect of this particular tournament format then, in terms of how you picked your winners, is it the banning strategy itself? Is it the sort of the luck factor that comes into where players are matched up, or is it just overall strength of player themselves? Start with Mortsy.
It's a combination of, I mean, luck you can't necessarily factor in. Kind of everyone is equally lucky right now. We don't know how that the die are gonna roll. We don't know where the ball's gonna end up. But I think just overall strength-wise and depth are the two most important things. Because just to do the best to make the ban as irrelevant as possible in terms of your team strength.
All right, Geki, same question.
I think the ban is quite important, but basically, when people ban, they're gonna look to either. I think the winning strategy will be to target people, like as Mortsy said earlier in the podcast, that the player that is known to be a specialist with that X character. Obviously, targeting a player who has a plethora of characters is also a viable strategy. I don't think it's the right way to go about it because, you know, there's people like Justin, like NuckleDu, like Punk that all play a ton of characters. However, if you can convince the other team somehow, since it is a point-based matchup, it's not going to be an OCV situation. Hurting someone that is the best player can also be a good factor for the whole team. So, I don't know. It's really going to be interesting to see. So, I can't really decide.
All right, last word, SplicedHelix.
I think it's a mix between strategy and of the bans and strength of the players. You know, it comes down to who's going to win, regardless of what order they get picked in. So, if you're going for a point-based system, you know, you're counting on Justin getting a point. You're counting on Punk getting a point. You're counting on NuckleDu getting a point. Everybody else, I feel, is up in the air because almost everybody can beat almost everybody else on that panel or out of that draft. You've got people that have won things. You've got people that haven't won anything, and you've got people who haven't been proven yet. And I think the X factor is going to be who steps up in a way that nobody's expecting. Who's going to take out, you know. Let's say you do ban the Knot right off the bat, which I would absolutely do because that character I play Guile, so.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, you know, you've got that as Justin's best character, the character that he can take and run the clock out with consistently. You take that out, then, you know, he's got another set of characters, but you've got that strength off the table. And you've got the ability to open up the avenue for somebody who might not normally be able to beat his strongest character, which is the Monot, that could take a game off of him in an upset because he's not playing his strongest character.
Yeah, and of course the importance of whether or not each of these matchups will be the 1v1 aspect of it, whether each of these are first to ones or best 2 out of 3 also play a huge factor. Yes, you are character locked with your selection during the I guess we'll call it the pick and bans phase like they do for all the other esports titles, but whether it's you could take one game versus taking 2 is absolutely a huge difference maker. So we'll have to see how the rest of that actually plays out. So
I don't think they'll go with one game with best of 1 because it just is too quick. You have an entire set of matches in like an hour.
No, that is 100% fair. So I'm really, really hoping that they are also best 2 out of 3 for each of the 1v1 matchups. I think that's sort of the best way to go. We touched on a point-based system earlier, so I'm going to have one more little wildcard question for everybody, and we're going to start this one going backwards. We'll start with SplicedHelix this time. Which individual player will score the most wins in this tournament?
It's gonna be one of the top three. It's gonna be Dew, it's gonna be Justin Wong, or it's gonna be Punk. Honestly, I think it'll be Punk. I think it might be a 1 or 2 point difference between Punk and Justin Wong, but I think Punk's gonna.
I was gonna ask if that was a head pick or a heart pick, as you know, SplicedHelix and I both part of the A4 community that Punk started on. Geki, same question.
Helix hit the nail on the head. It's a heart and a head question. It just doesn't make sense to pick someone else. Punk is the most dominant player in this bracket, or in this team season, because not only is he, the captain of the Team Inferno, obviously, and not only does he play a crap ton of characters, not only is he incredibly intimidating to play against if you've never fought him before, but he just plays the player the most compared to the rest of the players on the board. Because it doesn't really matter who he plays. Because he, for example, he beat Nephew with his own Colleen all of a sudden in a tournament and shamed him. Right? That is absolutely ridiculous. No one else does that. No, Justin Wong has never done that to anyone. NuckleDu can't dream of doing that to anyone. So I don't think anyone else has the mental fortitude to stand up next to Punk, aside from maybe Justin Wong or NuckleDu. But I think the fear factor and the character strength and the game strength and the youth is going to carry Punk to being the most successful player in this season.
All right, Mortsy, is this tournament tailor-made for Reciprocity's Punk, or do you have another person in mind for the most individual wins in this tournament?
I do have another person in mind. I'm going to go with Jaywalk. I think that there's a few reasons for that. Firstly, I can't pick any of the specialists on the off chance that they get banned, because you have to, when figuring out who's going to get the most points, it has to be someone who is consistent and has the depth of characters to not be affected by ban. Also, we should definitely write all of this down, all of these predictions down, because I definitely want to see how it actually turns out at the end, and we can actually award points for this stuff. This is like a fantastic fantasy league. But I think Justin Wong has a better chance, or has the best chance, working under the assumption that even if he does get banned out, he still has too many characters. And I think that Punk, if he does get Karen banned a lot, that he won't find as much success as Jaywalk will.
All right, so there you have it, guys. That was the final round from your analysts, Mortsy, Geki, and SplicedHelix. Guys, I'm going to give you guys a chance to sell yourselves real quick. Starting with Geki, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitch, on YouTube, on Twitter, under Geki_CP. I run Fighting EX Lair tournaments, or I help run EX tournaments at Vancouver Street Battle. And you can find me on CFN at PB_Geki, the old username. Party boards are dead. And yeah.
All right. Wow. Rest in peace. Okay. Mortsy, sell yourself online.
Well, you can find me at Twitter at MortsyFG or MortsyFGC. If you want to know how the Vancouver Street Battle tournaments went, because I tweet. That's like my only time I ever tweet after all the matches. And you can of course find me playing at Vancouver Street Battle every Thursday and Saturday, because I don't ever miss. I very, very, very rarely miss. Also, you can catch me at Northwest Major, because I will be there. I'm also going to Combo Breaker and going to Evo, so that's good to go. Online, you can catch me under either Mortsy playing stupid number of characters, or you can catch me, check out my replays, as the best Fang in Canada, and the highest ranked Fang in Canada, King Toxicity. That's me.
All right, SplicedHelix, sell yourself online as well. Let's go.
I'm the only American on this panel. No, everything I have, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, everything is SplicedHelix. I have never seen another SplicedHelix anywhere ever. So anything you want to look up for me, that's what you're going to search under. I don't go anywhere. I don't travel anywhere. I hit Evo if I can. I haven't won anything. I'm not the best Fang in any. I play Guile. I do all right. That's about it.
All right, I want to thank our panel for joining us today for the live cast of Beyond the Fist, Episode 1. We talk about Draft Day. After the first airing of the first set of matches, we will do another one of these the following Wednesday, assuming that it's not tomorrow. Or tomorrow, assuming the first one is not tomorrow, because I'm actually going early to Northwest Majors, so I'm not going to be around. But I'm told the first one is tomorrow? I thought it was next week. Is it tomorrow? Okay, so we will have, we'll plan out some way of doing this. We might have to do this a little bit earlier. We'll figure something out. I like that my panel does some verbal and visual jousting to build the meter, spend it, and win in the final round. Thank you very, very much for joining us, guys. If you want to be a guest on the panel, you guys can fire me a DM on Twitter. Slide right on in there like Geki, sitting there for 200 frames waiting until he slides with Vega. At Tagashi Azrael. You can find all of my stuff. Of course, you're watching here live, twitch.tv/Tagashi Azrael. Search for Toga TV on YouTube. This episode will be going up on YouTube later on. Thank you to my guests once again, and thank you for everybody for tuning in. We will see you guys next time for more of Beyond the Fist. What do we see beyond our fists? Find out next time. Take care, everybody.